We have special team coverage to cover every angle and give you the latest up-to-date and accurate information as we go to air. Jack Hahn is in Sydney, Connor our 4K is in Brisbane, and Darby Travers is in our newsroom. First to Jack Hahn. Jack, there have been long lines at testing clinics right across the city.
Yeah, that's right, Leo. Long lines at testing clinics right around Sydney. Take a look at where I am at. I'm at Pennant Hills Road, and you can see the line of testing. This is just off Pennant Hills Road, but you can see this line stretches for more than 1 kilometre, and it really shows how serious Sydney-siders are taking this virus. We're about 30 k's from the epicentre of the outbreak in the Northern Beaches, but yet people are still getting tested. And another facet of New South Wales taking this very serious, the New South Wales government, so serious that they prompted a lockdown of sorts. A stay-at-home request for all people on the Northern Beaches from the Spit Bridge right up until Palm Beach. That's about a 45-minute drive. More than 250,000 people told to put their lives on halt for 3 days. Now, that should end very soon, but it definitely shows how serious the New South Wales government is taking this outbreak. About tens or dozens of cases have been reported of coronavirus in the Northern Beaches that prompted this lockdown, and it's not yet clear how the virus got into the community, but we do understand a number of super spreading events took place. The virus has been confirmed to have a genetic sequencing of a virus in North America, in the United States. Now, how did that virus get from the US to the Northern Beaches? That's the biggest question. Right now, a number of news agencies, and the current hypothesis is that it was a member of a flight crew because they were not subject to the same stringent hotel quarantine as returning passengers, but that has since changed. More stricter quarantine for them, but of course you can't lock down the air travel, particularly flight crews, because a lot of our supplies, not only passengers but also medical supplies, vaccinations, food, and of course our parcels, letters, they are all coming by flight. So there are going to be these holes in the hotel quarantine system in keeping coronavirus out. We have been told that, but when those holes do emerge, we see these scenes of people getting tested because coronavirus is now back in the community. Now, let's take a listen to how Gladys Berejiklian has described the latest outbreak.
Can I please stress to everybody in and around Avalon and the Northern Beaches that for the next 3 days you should not be leaving your home unless it's absolutely necessary. Please make sure that if you do leave your home for necessary business that you wear a mask, especially if you're going grocery shopping, especially if you're catching public transport. And of course, stay away from non-essential activities such as entering what we regard as those high-risk venues, whether it's a hotel, a restaurant, a cafe. People should only be undertaking on the Northern Beaches absolutely necessary activity. And if we get on top of this in the next 2 or 3 days, all of us will be able to have a much better Christmas. But if we don't get on top of it in the next few days, it could mean further restrictions down the track. We don't want to go for that. We want to see what we can manage with the existing guidelines we've set for the community. And I do want to thank deeply the community of Avalon and the more broadly the Northern Beaches, who have responded very positively to what we've asked them to do.
Now, Leo, the biggest question is, will they have this under control, and how seriously are people taking it? Well, you can see by the lines of testing behind me, people are taking it seriously, but I can tell you anecdotally, the biggest concern at the moment is masks. Will people wear them? I went shopping yesterday at a big shopping centre, Miranda Fair, for Christmas. About half an hour drive from the outbreak of the Northern Beaches, maybe a little bit more. Not too many people wearing masks there, but it appears that the majority of Sydney-siders are taking it very seriously, as exemplified by these massive lines to get tested. Leo.
All right, Jack, thank you. Now let's head over to Connor, our 4K in Brisbane for us. Connor, every Australian state and territory has now reinstated border restrictions just days out from Christmas.
Leo, all Scott Morrison and so many others wanted for Christmas was open borders. Now that early Christmas present, one which we only had for a week, has been revoked. Every Australian state and territory has moved to reinstate some level of border restriction. In keeping with the national hotspot regime, the states are only locking out specific geographical areas, not entire states. But the restrictions do vary from state to state. Here's what you need to know. Victoria will implement a permit system. Everyone who resides in regional New South Wales is welcome. Residents from the Northern Beaches are not. Those in the Greater Sydney area are allowed in, but that's conditional on them getting tested and returning a negative result. Western Australia may have the toughest border restrictions, but theirs hinges on honesty. All New South Wales arrivals will have to quarantine at home for 14 days and take a COVID test on day 11. South Australia's border with New South Wales remains open, but travellers from that state must complete a cross-border pass. No border restrictions are current in the ACT. Authorities there are asking anyone who has been in the Northern Beaches area from Friday the 11th of December to immediately self-isolate and get tested. Now moving to Tasmania, where anyone who has been in the Northern Beaches area in the past 14 days will be turned away unless approved as an essential traveller. FIFO workers can apply for this essential traveller status. Like Tasmania and Queensland, the Northern Territory has declared Sydney's Northern Beaches a hotspot and requires travellers from that hotspot to undertake 14 days supervised quarantine. Where I am in Queensland, anyone who's been in the declared hotspot region will have to spend 14 days in hotel quarantine. Now that announcement comes after revelations. A Northern Beaches woman travelled through Queensland last week while infected. Our Chief Health Officer is most concerned she could have infected passengers on Virgin flight VA925, which flew into Brisbane Airport on the 16th of December. And Leo state leaders have urged people to avoid travelling to any part of Greater Sydney, lest impromptu restrictions prevent them from returning home. And the border restrictions could keep coming, Queensland Premier Anastasia Palaszczuk warns, if any cases of unlinked community transmission arise in other parts of New South Wales.
Connor, thank you. Now let's go to Darby Travers in our newsroom. Darby, what's the latest as we cross to you?
Yeah, good evening, Leo. A lot of breaking news as we go to air tonight. What we know is that the Victorian border will close to Greater Sydney and the Central Coast from midnight tonight in response to the growing outbreak of the COVID cluster on Sydney's northern beaches. Victoria's Premier Daniel Andrews made the announcement just a few hours ago, saying the border will open when health authorities advise him it is safe, not at midnight Wednesday, as was originally planned. Now, the closure does not affect anyone in regional New South Wales, and any Victorians who are currently in there will get an extra 24 hours to return and quarantine in their own home rather than in a hotel. This follows a further 30 cases announced by Premier Gladys Berejiklian today, with 28 of those confirmed to be linked to the Avalon cluster. Now, because of this, anyone in Greater Sydney will now only be allowed to have a maximum of 30 visitors in their home, which will apply until at least midnight on Wednesday. Now, less than an hour after this announcement, it was also announced that South Australia will close its border to Greater Sydney also from midnight tonight, meaning anyone arriving will have to self-isolate for 14 days. A number of events have been affected, including the annual Sydney to Hobart yacht race, the first time in its 76-year history that it has not gone ahead. And also, it has forced the Sydney Swans and GWS Giants AFL clubs to cancel their pre-season training and put many people's Christmas and holiday plans into absolute chaos. Leo?
Alright, Darby, thank you, and thanks to our entire team for our coverage tonight. You can stay up to date by following us on social media. Just search 6 News AU to find us.